She said, "I shouldn't be here." But her hand never left the frame of my door. For a moment, all I could hear was the soft hum of the fridge and the sound of rain dripping from the gutter outside. Her blouse clung to her arms, the fabric still damp from the short walk between our houses, and her hair was a little undone, the kind of imperfection that makes time pause. I didn't say anything. I didn't trust my voice yet. She looked past me into the room. Small, quiet, warm with the smell of coffee I hadn't finished. "You shouldn't keep the door open like that," she said finally, not quite looking at me. "Anyone could walk by." "Anyone?" I asked. That got a faint smile out of her. Not amusement exactly, more like she knew how foolish it sounded, coming from her. Her name was Clara, though I rarely said it. Felt too personal, too loaded. She was the neighbor who borrowed tools and left little notes on my porch. Married. Kind. Sometimes distant. Sometimes not. That night, she wasn't distant. She'd come to return a book I'd lent her. Some half-forgotten thing I mentioned liking months ago. But the book was still in her hand. Unoffered. Like she couldn't quite remember why she'd brought it. "Was it good?" I asked, nodding toward it. She blinked, then looked down. "I didn't finish it." Something in the way she said it, low, careful, a little ashamed, made my stomach tighten. The rain picked up outside, tapping the porch rail. I could smell wet earth, her perfume, the faint soap from her hands. She shifted her weight, and the sound of her heel against the wood made the space between us feel sharper. "Your light was on," she said softly, almost as an excuse. "You saw it from your window?" She nodded. Her eyes met mine then, steady, almost defiant. I couldn't sleep. Neither could I. I wanted to tell her that, but it came out differently. "You can come in if you want." Her breath caught, small but enough. She glanced past me again, into the dim light of my living room. It wasn't much, one couch, scattered papers, a single lamp. But for a heartbeat, she looked at it like it was a place she didn't want to leave. "I just came to give this back," she said. But she didn't move. I took a step closer. The book's corner brushed against my hand, but she didn't let go. Her fingers lingered, cold, trembling just slightly from the rain or something else. I could feel the question hanging between us, the one neither of us would ask. Her wedding ring caught the light. She noticed me notice, and withdrew her hand fast, tucking it into her coat pocket. "I should go," she said. "Okay," I murmured, but I didn't step aside. For a few seconds, neither of us moved. The sound of the rain filled the silence, and somewhere in the distance, a car door slammed. A reminder of the world still turning outside this pause. Then she looked at me, really looked. Not like a neighbor, not like someone making a mistake, but like she'd already made it and couldn't undo it. "I shouldn't be here," she said again, softer this time. I waited for her to leave. She didn't. She stayed in the doorway, rainlight glinting on her sleeve, eyes fixed on mine, and in that stillness, something began that neither of us could name yet. Then, somewhere behind her, a voice called her name, and just like that, the spell cracked. The next morning, I told myself it had just been a moment, nothing more. But moments like that don't stay still. They echo. For the next few days, I caught myself glancing toward her house. Her kitchen window faced mine across the narrow yard, and some nights her light was on long after midnight. I never saw her husband. I knew his car, though, the silver one that was gone more often than it was home. I'd moved into that house last spring, right after college. My friends said it was too quiet for someone my age, but quiet felt safe. My last relationship had ended in noise, arguments that dragged on until sunrise, words that left bruises. I wasn't looking for anything when I moved here. I was just tired of being misunderstood. Clara, on the other hand, seemed to exist in some careful rhythm, always polite, always composed. But I'd seen cracks. The way she laughed a half-second too late, or how she lingered by her mailbox long after getting her letters, pretending to read one twice. A few evenings after that night, she came by again. This time in daylight. She had a tray of muffins, said she'd baked too many. "Too many?" I repeated, smiling. "You live with someone, don't you?" She hesitated, then gave a small shrug. He's away this week. I invited her in just like before. No rain this time, no excuse. She stepped inside anyway. The house felt smaller with her in it. She looked around, the same lamp, same couch, same coffee mug still sitting where I'd left it. You really don't decorate much, she said, tracing a finger along the edge of a shelf. Never stayed anywhere long enough to bother. She nodded slowly. You're still figuring things out. The way she said it. Not judgmental, not condescending, just quietly observant. Made something in my chest twist. You? I asked. Her eyes softened. Then she looked away. I stopped figuring things out a long time ago. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was heavier, filled with everything we weren't saying. She stood close enough that I could smell the faint scent of vanilla lotion on her skin. When she leaned forward to set the tray down, her shoulder brushed mine. It wasn't an accident. I froze, but she didn't move away immediately. Her breath skimmed the side of my neck before she finally stepped back. Sorry, she murmured. Don't be, I said too quickly. Her lips parted, but she didn't answer. Instead, she looked toward the window, sunlight catching in her hair, her reflection faint in the glass. For a moment, she seemed smaller, almost fragile in that afternoon light. Clara, I said quietly. She turned, and our eyes locked. Neither of us pretending anymore. There was no kiss, no confession. Just a pause that went on too long. Her hand resting on the back of the chair between us. Mine reaching to steady it. Our fingers met barely, but neither of us pulled away. It was enough to change everything. The next time she came over, it wasn't planned. She was standing on my porch again. This time in the middle of the afternoon, sunlight catching in her hair. She held her phone like she wasn't sure why she'd brought it. She started, then stopped. I shouldn't just drop by. You already did, I said, stepping aside. She hesitated, but came in. The air between us was different now, thicker, charged with the memory of that last touch. She moved toward the window, looking out at the yard where our mailboxes faced each other. You should really mow your lawn, she said lightly. I was hoping you'd come over and tell me that, I replied. She laughed, soft, quick, and shook her head, but the moment she turned back, her smile faltered. You shouldn't say things like that, she whispered. Her phone buzzed on the table, sharp in the silence. A message lit up the screen, Michael home soon. She stared at it a beat too long before turning it face down. Her husband, the invisible name in every silence between us. You can ignore it, I said quietly. I can't. She took a slow breath. He'll be back tonight. The words hung there, heavy and final, but she didn't leave. Instead, she sat on the edge of the couch, hands clasped tightly in her lap. I sat across from her, and for a while, neither of us spoke. The clock ticked too loud. Outside, a lawnmower started somewhere down the block, and the sound made the room feel smaller. Then she said, almost to herself, I don't know why I keep coming here. Maybe you do, I said. She looked up sharply, eyes wide, startled by my honesty. Clara? I started, but my throat tightened. She stood, pacing to the bookshelf, pretending to study the spines of books she'd already seen. Her fingers brushed the edges, one by one, stopping at the one she'd borrowed and returned. You remind me what it's like to be noticed, she said. So quietly I almost missed it. I took a step toward her. You don't think people notice you? Not like this. Her voice trembled on the last word. When she turned, I was closer than I meant to be. So close I could see the faint shimmer of moisture in her eyes. She didn't move back this time. For a heartbeat, everything else faded. The world, the house, the clock, even guilt. Just the distance between us shrinking. Her hand lifted, uncertain, then brushed against my chest. A hesitant touch that set my pulse racing. I wanted to close the space, to kiss her. She wanted to let me. Then 3 sharp knocks at the door. She flinched back. It was Mrs. Green from next door, calling through the glass, cheerful and oblivious. Clara! Oh, good, you're here. I thought I saw your car. Clara froze, every muscle tight. I stepped away, pretending to check my phone. She mouthed, "Don't say anything." When the knocking stopped and footsteps faded down the porch, she let out a shaky breath. Her hands trembled. So did mine. "See?" she whispered. "This is why I shouldn't be here." I nodded. "And yet," she met my eyes, her voice barely audible. "And yet I'm still here." We stood there, hearts pounding, a breath apart. Close enough to feel everything, yet still just out of reach. It had been 3 days since the near disaster at the door. 3 days of pretending nothing had changed. That pretense broke on a Thursday night. Clara knocked once and let herself in. No tray of muffins, no book in her hand. Just her. Eyes tired, voice quiet. "Michael's gone again," she said. I didn't ask where. She stood by the door like she wasn't sure what to do next. Her hair was down, a little messy, and there was a small tear in the sleeve of her cardigan. Somehow, that small imperfection pulled me in more than anything else ever had. "You're shaking," I said. "Ival kied fast." Her tone was brittle, but she didn't move when I took her coat. I hung it over a chair, buying time, trying not to notice the faint scent of rain and her perfume, warm, familiar, dizzying. When I turned back, she was standing in the middle of the room, arms folded, looking at me like she wanted to say something dangerous. "Do you ever think about that night?" she asked. "Every day," I said before I could stop myself. She exhaled sharply, as if that answer both relieved and terrified her. "You shouldn't. I know. But you do." "Yeah." The air went still. She took one slow step toward me, then another. When she stopped, we were so close I could feel the heat of her skin. Her eyes flicked to my mouth, then away. "You don't make this easy," she whispered. "I'm not trying to." She gave a half-laugh, short, fragile. "You're too young to know what you're doing. Maybe. But I know what I want." That silenced her. The clock ticked again, far away. When she finally spoke, her voice cracked. "You have no idea what people would think. What they'd call me. Maybe I don't care what they think." "You should," she said, but she didn't sound convinced. Her hands trembled, and she reached up, brushing a strand of hair from her face. I caught her wrist before she could lower it again. Our fingers tangled, tentative, testing. She looked down at them like they were something separate from her, something that had already betrayed her. "Clara," I said softly. Her eyes lifted, glossy in the dim light. I could see everything she tried to hide, the loneliness, the ache, the guilt. "Tell me to stop," I said. She didn't. Instead, she stepped closer, close enough that her breath grazed my neck. My hand moved on instinct, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear, fingertips grazing her jaw. She shivered. "This is wrong," she whispered. "I know." She leaned in until her forehead rested against mine. The world narrowed to the rhythm of her breathing, the faint tremor in her voice when she said, "Then why can't I leave?" I almost kissed her then. I could feel the space between us disappear, half an inch, maybe less. Then her phone buzzed in her pocket. A name flashed across the screen. Her husband's. Her eyes snapped open. Mine did too. Neither of us moved. The sound of the phone filled the room, insistent, merciless. And in that suspended moment, breath, heartbeat, guilt colliding, she whispered, "Don't answer it." When the phone finally stopped buzzing, the silence that followed felt even louder. Clara stepped back first, one unsteady breath at a time. The air between us thinned, cooling fast, like a flame running out of oxygen. She began, then stopped. Her hand went to her pocket, but she didn't pull the phone out. She just stood there, staring at the floor. "What is it?" I asked. She lifted her head slowly. "He knows." I blinked. "What?" "Michael. He knows I've been coming here." Her voice was faint, but steady. "He called last night. Asked why your car's always in the driveway when he checks the cameras." "Cameras?" "Front porch. Driveway. He has them linked to his phone." She swallowed hard. "He didn't say much." Just asked if you've been helping me with the garden. Elite. I could see her hands trembling. She pressed them together, trying to hide it. He's not home yet, she said. But he will be. And when he comes back, he'll look. He'll know. I stepped toward her. Then stay here tonight. She looked at me like I'd spoken another language. You can't say things like that. I mean it. I know you do. The hurt in her voice wasn't from disbelief. It was from wanting to believe me. She turned away, pacing toward the window. The late light spilled across her face, soft and tired. You think this is about him, but it isn't. Then what is it about? She hesitated. Her reflection in the glass looked almost younger, caught between light and shadow. It's about me. About how long it's been since someone actually looked at me like you do. That landed like a confession and a wound at the same time. I'm not just looking, I said quietly. You know that. She faced me again. That's what scares me. Her voice broke on the last word. I went to her slowly until we were close enough that I could feel the heat coming off her skin. She didn't move away this time. I should have told you something, I said, before I could stop myself. Before this started. Her brow furrowed. What? I wasn't just your neighbor by accident. I knew who you were before I moved in. The air snapped between us. She blinked once, twice. What are you talking about? My mom, she used to work with Michael. I'd heard about you. The way he talked about you. I swallowed. I didn't plan any of this. But when I saw you that first day, I couldn't stay away. Her lips parted. You knew. I didn't know it would turn into this. She backed up a step, hand to her mouth, eyes wide. Not angry, but hurt in that quiet, deep way that sits behind the ribs. So all this time, she whispered. No, I said. Not like that. I swear. Her chest rose and fell fast. You shouldn't have told me. Why? Because now I don't know whether to walk away or stay. Finished. She looked at me for a long, fragile second. Then, with her voice barely audible, she said, If I stay tonight, there's no going back. And still, she didn't move toward the door. The storm came late that night, rain hammering the roof, wind shaking the windows. She hadn't left. Clara sat on the couch, knees drawn in, her damp cardigan folded beside her. The quiet between us was no longer awkward. It was charged, waiting for one of us to break it. You should go before it gets worse, I said, though I didn't want her to. She looked up at me from the couch, hair falling across her face. You really want me to leave? The answer was in my silence. I crossed the room slowly, barefoot on the creaking floor. Every step felt like a confession. When I stopped in front of her, she didn't look away. You think you know what you want, she said, voice soft but steady. But you don't understand what comes after. Maybe not, I said. But I know what I'll regret if I don't try. Her eyes glistened in the dim light. For the first time, she didn't hide behind words. I reached out, brushing a strand of wet hair from her cheek. My fingertips lingered longer than they should have, tracing the warmth of her skin. She closed her eyes, just for a second, like she was letting herself feel it before she took it away. You make it too easy to forget who I'm supposed to be, she whispered. Maybe that's the point. Her breath caught, sharp and shaky. She stood, suddenly too close, our reflections trembling together in the window behind her. The storm outside seemed to mimic us. Restless, unstoppable, on the verge of breaking. I can't keep pretending this doesn't exist, she said. Then don't. Her hand lifted, fingers brushing my jaw, her thumb tracing the corner of my mouth as if deciding whether to cross that final line. I leaned in barely an inch, maybe less. Her breath touched my skin, warm and uneven. If I do this, she murmured, you'll see me differently. I already do. That undid her. She exhaled, trembling, and her forehead pressed lightly against mine. No words now, just breathing, heat, heartbeat. The space between us vanished, but not with the desperation I'd imagined. It was slower, quieter, a kind of surrender that felt like truth. My hand found her back. Hers clutched my shirt, knuckles white. The storm outside roared, and for a moment the rest of the world disappeared. Then she pulled away, not far, just enough to look at me. Her eyes were wet. "I can't undo this," she said. "I don't want you to." She gave a small, broken laugh. "You'll learn to." We stood there, two people who had already crossed the line, whether they wanted to admit it or not. And then, softly, she said, "You make me feel like I'm still alive." The words hit like lightning, bright, irreversible. Neither of us moved to speak after that. We didn't need to, because in that silence, we both knew the truth. Whatever came next, it had already happened. Morning came slow. The storm had passed, leaving the air washed clean, soft light stretching through the blinds. Clara was still there, sitting at the kitchen table, both hands wrapped around a mug that had long gone cold. Her eyes were distant, but calm, like she'd stopped fighting something inside herself. I stood by the counter, unsure how to start. The silence between us wasn't tense anymore. It was full of everything we'd already said without words. "I didn't mean to stay," she said finally, a faint smile tugging at her mouth. "I know." She looked down, tracing the rim of the mug. "But I didn't mean to leave either." That was the closest she'd come to choosing. I walked over, pulled out the chair beside her, and sat down. The scent of rain still clung to her hair. When she glanced at me, her eyes softened in that quiet, dangerous way they always did right before she turned away. Only this time she didn't. "You should regret this," she whispered. "Do you?" She took a long breath. "Not yet." I smiled, small and tired, and reached across the table. My hand covered hers. For a second, she froze. Then her fingers laced through mine, tentative but certain. "You know, I used to think being seen was the same as being judged," she said. "But you look at me like I'm still allowed to want something." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just held her hand tighter. Her gaze drifted to the window. The world outside was already returning to its routine. Kids on bikes, a dog barking, normal life continuing like last night hadn't happened. But for us, it had. "I can't promise anything," she said softly. "I'm not asking for promises." "Then what are you asking for?" I leaned forward, resting my forehead lightly against hers. "Just this, right now." Her breath shuddered, but she didn't pull away. Her hand slid up to my neck, her thumb tracing the edge of my jaw. There was no urgency this time, no guilt, no hesitation. Just warmth. For a long while, we stayed that way, two people caught in a fragile kind of peace. The kind that doesn't need to last forever to be real. When she finally spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. "You make me feel seen. You make me feel steady," I said. She smiled, small, real, a little sad. "Then maybe that's enough." Her fingers lingered on my cheek, and then she leaned in. Not a kiss, not yet. Just a quiet press of her forehead against mine. The kind of closeness that says everything words can't. Outside, the sun broke through the clouds, lighting the room in gold. And for the first time since that night in the doorway, neither of us wanted to move. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?